The Regional Council meeting, March 9th, 2020. Call this meeting to order. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is being recorded and streamed on a publicly accessible website. Council and CAO additions. I have no additions. Mr. Barry, any additions? Any councillors with any additions? Very well, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? The agenda is adopted. Adoption of minutes of the Special Regional Council meeting, February 10th, 2020. The Special Regional Council February 19th, 2020, and the Regional Council of February 24th, 2020. Can I have a motion to adopt those minutes? Moved by Councillor Soul, seconded by Councillor Roper. All those in favor? Carried. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on the agenda. Are there any comments on the agenda tonight? Mrs. Vandersteen. Mrs. Vandersteen, you came in late, so I will reread this. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is being recorded and streamed on a publicly accessible website.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for being tardy.
Oh, that's okay.
I just want to speak to the meeting room item on the agenda prior to council having deliberations, and just further to the letter I had sent prior to the last council meeting, just request that council take into consideration the couple of groups that are making use of the Raven Room, and if a meeting space could be made available that is similar to that, so it doesn't open up the whole scope of events. I think that would be a good thing for the groups that are using it, as well as any that may need it in the future. And while I appreciate the idea of the open space at the rec center, I think there are opportunities where things like the BC Wildlife Federation or other groups that are using the room may need a little more privacy than that affords. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vandersteen. Any other comments from the public? Very well. Business arising. CAO update on School District 81 lifeguard training program. Mr. Barry.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the last meeting, there were some inquiries regarding the lifeguard program through School District 81. So we did some follow-up. The program actually last ran in 2017 and ceased after that due to a decision by School District 81. Had to do mostly with a low enrollment and the requirement to have a full-time teacher during the time of the training or at the rec center. Each subsequent year, staff has communicated back with the school to confirm to see if there was an interest. This year, there's an interest. So actually tomorrow there's actually aquatic staff attending the high school to do a presentation and to get an interest list again. So for this fall. Yeah.
Are there any comments, councillors? Councillor Andrews.
Could we get just an update to confirm if it happens? Because that'd be kind of neat to know too.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, you will.
Any other comments? Very well. Moving on. Administration report number 18. Second quarter grant and aid requests. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. So we did receive a request for second quarter grant and aid from the curling club. So they attended a council meeting in October that will support them with their NDIT grant for the refinishing of their rocks over there, as well as the ice scraper purchase. So,
any comments, councillors? Can I get a motion then, please? Councillor Andrews. Your motion to adopt the recommendation to waive the policy for grant and aid.
That'd be correct. Yeah.
Seconder, Mr. Roper, Councillor Roper. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Admin report number 19. Mr. Coupé.
Thank you, Mayor. So as Bev alluded to earlier. This is a report coming from Council's decision at the February 10th meeting to no longer offer after-hours meeting room use at the municipal hall, given the security concerns. Stacy and I put our heads together and chatted about the facility. So Council had asked to see what kind of options there were to use the rec center. So we kind of broadly categorized what we could come up with into three different options, some of which are quite broad. So the first one, just offering the meeting room space within the facility for nonprofits without fees. There are some potential items to limit the scope outlined in the report that council may wish or may not wish to consider. The other option was to potentially enhance the upper lobby, which is currently used by groups kind of in an unofficial manner for meetings. This would require a little bit of funds, which are already in the budget, and there's some furniture in the upper lobby already needing some replacement. This would, again, as Bev indicated, it wouldn't provide a private space, and it would be limited to relatively small groups. Council's other option is using the grant and aid process that exists. It's already in place. It has it's well established. However, it may be a little bit more cumbersome for smaller groups who are using it for one meeting a year or something like that. So beyond that, it's really up to council how and if they wish to proceed with the meeting rooms.
Very well. Are there any comments? Councillor Andrews.
So just something that popped in my head now. Has consideration been made, like we're here after hours currently at the moment, for the meeting rooms to be still open after hours if there's existing people here anyways for another, like instead of having to have people here for security purposes?
So just to clarify, so during when there's council meetings or other tourism advisory meetings, those types of things, we hadn't put any consideration to that. Some of the security concerns still exist in that case, in terms of, especially if you have council's down here and people are moving up and down to the Raven Room, it's still to some of the more unsecured areas. So certainly, as the first report indicated, additional work can be done to the building to make it more secure. Or having additional staff in the areas. So you're better off if you have people in the building. I still would caution about allowing people that could easily get past this meeting without somebody noticing.
Councillor Penny.
I just wonder if there's a way that we could allow the not-for-profit groups to use a room whenever needed over at the rec center, but I wouldn't want to just throw it out there that it's, no holds barred, basically, that anybody wants to have a meeting, but it'd be nice to figure out some way to do it a case-by-case basis per group. I just wonder what the implications would be cost-wise to the municipality if people are using this room. As long as everybody goes in there and they clean up after themselves, they go out, I'm sure it'll be fine, but if they don't, then we're stuck having to clean it up.
So I note, Councillor Penny, that they said here that the providing revenue of just under $1,200 in 2019. So we're not looking at a large cost or a large impact to revenues here. When I read this, I was thinking that perhaps some of these nonprofit groups that use this only once annually, we might waive the fee for nonprofit groups on a one-time basis. And if they used it more frequently than that, come up with a fee for them to use it. I know how others feel. Councillor Roper.
I think right now our nonprofits need more support than ever, given the current economic conditions. And this would be just for meetings, right? Not fundraisers or events or special things, just meetings. So I see the the loss of the $1,200 revenue. I don't see that as a deal breaker. It's not substantial revenue. It's not nothing, but it's not substantial. I would like to see it opened up to all the nonprofits. I think it would be a good service.
Councillor Penny.
I have much the same feeling, but I'd like to see some sort of, whether it's a small security deposit or something put down from a group. I don't think it's that much of a concern, but at the same time, we need to have something that if they were to do some damage in that room or leave a mess there, that then we need to pay staff to clean up from, that we have something at least, right, to protect the taxpayer.
Councillor Andrews?
So something we could do is similar to what we do with the Rotary barbecue at Rotary. Is for the non-for-profits, it's a free of charge, but I manage the barbecue, so I'll still take a deposit just in case it comes back and I got to fill up propane and clean the thing up. If it's clean, full, good to go, they get their deposit back. I think that would a little bit of administration to it, but for the amount of meetings we're having, I think maybe something like that, a security deposit put down, might work.
Councillor Gerwin?
So I think what I'm hearing is the second option, that nonprofit meeting room rentals within the Northern Rockies Regional Recreation Center be provided free of charge based on criteria established by council. So we have an opportunity to sit down and define what that criteria would look like. And I think it would be really important to define not-for-profit, like how everybody sees not-for-profit, whether it's all government agencies or what exactly do we mean by not-for-profit. I don't think that we're ready to discuss that tonight, but what I'm hearing everybody say is option number 2, and then we can put a little bit more work into it and see where it goes.
I think we have to take into consideration the not-for-profit groups that are under a lot of stress these days in our community. And there are other government organizations, governments, I guess one definition is governments are not for profit, but they can well afford to pay this, and they maybe should be in the commercial arena renting places at Woodlands, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't considerations is if there is a fee for service, it's not used as much. It's used, what would you call it, prudently. If we throw this open and every time a not-for-profit comes to us and we don't charge them anything, we might find the utilization of those rooms starts to increase substantially. It's something to think about, and we may want to put time limits on it. 1 or 2 uses per year free of charge, and then a fee after that. So Mile 300 Figure Skating Club, Mr. Carter, maybe you can speak to this about how many times minor hockey has used the monthly. So they have a monthly rental there. So that would be substantial if there was a fee. So I think it's something that we should consider, maybe some criteria.
Opening it up to Mr. Carter, can you, maybe you don't know the answer, but is there a reason why minor hockey has chosen to meet at the rec center and pay a fee rather than meet, say, at the college that offers a free space?
I think for the user group, it would probably differ for all of them. It's a bigger board with parents with children that can, make use of other space while these meetings are going on. So
okay.
Councillor Souls?
I think that there would be usefulness in several of these ideas combined. The open space at the top of the lobby, the upper lobby, actually would be used by quite a few of the groups if it were an open space that was actually set up for it. And so I think that it'd be interesting to try to work 2 of these ideas together at the same time. That idea would cover a lot of the low cost meeting needs that we have. And then for those issues where we do need the privacy, as was mentioned earlier, I can't see why we couldn't work on a room for that purpose.
Councillor Andrews?
So just, it sounds like we're going to spend a little bit more time on this as part of it. For the user groups that have utilized either the Bear Pit or the Raven Room in the past, could we send them kind of council's idea? We're looking at going with option 2 here. We've got some criteria that have been mentioned, and feel them out how we could assist them, and maybe they've got an idea that we haven't thought of. And if they get back to us, let them know whenever we're going to discuss it next. And if they get back to us by then, we can utilize the information. And if not, at least it was opened up to them.
And we can get some feedback from them. I think that's a great idea. Any other comments? So I think we're directing staff to maybe look into this a little further and bring us back some options that we could look at, and maybe contact those groups that Councillor Andrews had outlined. Yes, directing staff, it would be a motion. I'll make that motion. Do I have a seconder for my motion? Seconded by Councillor Gerwing. All those in favor? Excellent catch, Councillor Gerwing. Moving on. Admin report number 20. Mr. O'Shaughnessy, accessible parking in municipal lots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Background on this is at the February 10th Regional Council meeting, Christy Lear made a presentation to council regarding wheelchair accessible parking, including her initiative to raise awareness about accessibility called Step Up. Following the presentation, Regional Council resolved that staff be directed to provide a report establishing newly defined accessibility parking stalls at Municipal Square, as well as other properties owned by the municipality. An investigation into paved municipal parking areas that could be addressed relating to options came out of the investigation and are captured in the report for consideration should council wish to undertake any of them.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors?
Yeah, I wanted to just give my compliments for a very thorough report. Very well done. Every time I thought I had a question, I kept reading and the answer was there. So my compliments on a very well done report. I did have one question about, so if we move forward with this in the wintertime, how will we keep that access aisle free in the wintertime? Because obviously in the summer it'll be painted with the symbols that say, you know, don't park here. But what will we do in the wintertime? Because the no parking thing will be there, but just that aisle, the center aisle that you need for
To designate that space is to be left open.
Yeah, because you don't want another handicap vehicle parking there either, because that will be blocking that side access that vehicle needs if it's an independent vehicle. So I don't know. Question would be what would we do about that?
Mr. O'Shaughnessy, I guess one of the options would be to have a sign that says handicap parking and an arrow going one way and handicap parking with an arrow going the other way to indicate that there's a space there and the width of the space in the winter when you can't see the lines on the ground. Is that something that? Yeah, exactly.
Then another handicap vehicle could put up alongside there. But so maybe obviously we'll have to do an education campaign as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think accessibility. So for people who have mobility issues that are not in a wheelchair, we have far more citizens like that than we do citizens that are in a wheelchair. I think if we want to make sure that these spaces are accessible to people in wheelchairs, we have to make sure that the people who have mobility issues are not blocking these areas. And I'm not exactly sure how, I guess we can simply designate a parking spot that is only for wheelchair accessibility. Is that the idea? Or would the wheelchair accessibility be both for handicapped and wheelchair accessibility?
Mr. Mayor, the accessibility parking spots are for both.
Okay.
And in general, that's a general rule. So you can choose to make more spots or spaces in a particular area if that was the case.
So the wheelchair accessibility is not to the exclusion of handicap parking, is that correct?
Correct. Everything today is heading towards, it's called universal design. So it's all inclusive, not just specific to one sort of handicap or another.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Berry.
So obviously there are challenges when we paint and keeping the painted areas clear. So we would do what we could do there, especially if we scrape with loaders and stuff like that. But the reality is that signage and education would be the best piece in terms of, it could be even simply at the start of the sign and the design saying, keep the aisle free for however width that would be required, as an example. And then, of course, you know, the education piece would be to the people required to use those spaces. Because if you're not, then you shouldn't be parking there anyway. So that would be the education piece. Obviously, educate the public that they can't park there unless they have the right to park there, and then of course the ones that would have the right to use the spaces. So I think the signage and education is a big piece for the 6 months of the year when we have the ground cover.
Councillor Souls.
I was thinking of this issue in regards to to the attempt to create a universal system. And I look at a lot of small communities, and ours is one, but there's also lots of other small communities, and I'm concerned about the amount of room that it takes to have the systems in place. And I had this idea that maybe, I don't know if anyone's even discussed it yet, but I recall riding on a school bus when I was just a very small child, and they at that time had a little flipper that came out the side of the window that told you you're not supposed to pass the school bus. Now they essentially block the street off with, I mean, you don't dare go by. You can't miss the huge stop signs that are attached now to the school bus world. And I thought, what if that were something that was promoted in the world of the handicap world? Because then you can actually utilize existing space anywhere and have a system on your vehicle that actually designates your area. Yeah, the space beside, because actually it's that's a much more in way of creating an inclusive system. Because as much as we don't like it, it's really often that you find someone parked in a handicap spot that shouldn't be there, or that is halfway on it, and when the lines aren't defined well. It's not that most are trying to actually crowd those spaces. The spaces still get crowded. I think it might be a better approach. There might be a better way of approaching it. It's just.
Any other comments? On the options before council, we have 5 options.
I liked all 5.
Can I speak to the 5th one? I think Dawson Creek is submitting a resolution to the NCLGA. Did I not hear that? I saw that. Okay, so I think we can take off E because that's already being done by the city of Dawson Creek. Okay. And I liked all the rest of them too, Councillor Andrews. So I would make a motion or a second yours.
Councillor Andrews, was that a motion?
I would like to make a motion for option A, B, C, and D, please.
I would
Very
like
well.
to second that motion.
Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Gerwing. All those in favor?
I'm not going to oppose, just because I think we need more system with that.
Councillor Penny, were you opposed?
No, it's late.
Okay. Let's, Mr. Carter, would you record Councillor Souls as opposed? And you don't need to record Councillor Penny as late. Thank you. Moving on to administration report number 21. NCLGA Solid Waste Management Forum, June 16th to 17th, 2020 for discussion. Ms. Watson.
So at the last council meeting, Councillor Garwin requested that we do some research to find out what the cost might be to attend the NCLGA Solid Waste Management Forum. Essentially, the cost would be approximately $2,000 a person just to attend. The forum itself is in very tentative stages, so they don't have any further details. Particularly the trade show is in very early planning stages, and they just don't have any further information to forward our way. So we don't know what the costs might look like or waivers might look like if we were to present or participate in a trade show.
Very well. Any comments? Councillor Goring?
Well, excuse me, I would like to see us participate. I fully understand council's hesitation to vote for something when the costs are unknown. I think maybe we could do something like if you support, it is appropriate.
Any other comments? Councillor Penny.
Do we have any idea how many people we would want to send down to participate in it?
Well, I would really like to see us in the trade show, assuming they get a trade show together. So, this is the first time that they've done this forums, and the woman that's in charge is out of the country for a month, but they do have somebody replacing her, and we do have another planning meeting tomorrow. So hopefully we have a bit more information then. So I think it would be really important for us to be involved at least in the trade show so that we can showcase what we're doing here. And the president of the NCLGA has asked that we participate on some of the panel discussions to highlight our innovation that we have going on around the vermicomposting project. So I anticipate there being some fee waivers, some support in transportation, but we just haven't got that far yet.
I'd also like to see us participate in this. I'm not sure how many councillors, how many staff we're contemplating on sending down. Has there been any discussion?
Well, I think it would be really, well, depending, like somebody for the trade show, and then I don't know whether that same person could be on the panel or whether we would need two. I'm sort of suspecting that 2 staff people would be appropriate to send. Hopefully one we could get for free or some sort of travel subsidy, and then the municipality cover the cost of the other one.
Very well. Would these both be staff members or would there be an elected official there?
I guess that's up to council to decide. I think it would be important to have staff participating both on the panel and at the trade show, given that I believe the type of questions that are going to be asked are technical. So I could participate and give an overview, but it would be nowhere as detailed as Terry or Luann or Wilf, whoever ends up going, what they would be able to contribute.
Councillor Andrews.
And also to further on that, I know having been at NCLGA before, council's usually fairly busy with all the different events that go on and trainings and information centers. So I think I would be comfortable with sending 2 staff members for our vermicomposting aspect to be in the trade show and to have on panels or wherever they're needed. So I would make a motion that we send 2 of them down, 2 staff members down.
I'll second that.
At a cost of $2,000 each?
Let's say up to $5,000, just so that they don't have to come back again.
Very well. We have a mover and a seconder, seconded by Councillor Dolan. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Admin report number 22, award of vermicomposting contract. Mr. Cavalier.
Good evening. So the recommendation here is to waive the purchasing policy and direct award the 3-year term to Will Holt for the annual fee of $55,000 for the first 288 tons and $94.80 for every ton after that.
Any comments? Councillor Goring?
No, I would just like to make a motion to for option number 1.
Moved by Councillor Gerwing, seconded by Councillor Penny for option number 1. Did the grant application be submitted to you? Sorry.
I'm back.
I missed something. Okay.
Do you want me to read that?
No, that's okay. That the purchasing policy be waived and that the vermicomposting contract be direct awarded to Wilfoth Holding for a 3-year term commencing April 1st, 2020, with an annual fee of $55,000 for the first 288 tons of deposited material and $94.80 per ton over 288 tons. We have a mover.
I'll second. That was me and no.
Moved by Councillor Goering, seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Grant application for UBCM's Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Emergency Operations Center funding stream. Mrs. Laval.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the Emergency Operations funding grant from UBCM, the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund. This one we were successful in getting last year as well, which got us a lot of variety of equipment for our EOC. Just one small note, over the last year, provide some financial contribution points. So you might notice that as part of this application, we would like to put our regular EOC ESS budget towards the grant, which would hopefully help us be successful. We were just notified we're looking to get a small generator and some more EOC equipment for communications in rural and remote areas.
Very well. Any comments?
In the report, it says something about training as well. Is that part of the plan?
It is part of the plan. We're just trying to determine, I like to take advantage of the free courses whenever possible. So the schedule for EMBC's free courses came out after I had done this. So I just want to make sure what we can get for free, and then I'll try and make up the difference.
Okay, so my question then is around training is, so if we decide or you decide that some money is going to be used to offer training X, would that be open to firefighter, like all first responders, search and rescue, like it would be open to everybody involved, just not municipality staff?
Absolutely. Yes. We are currently hosting the EMBC evacuations training course, and it is open to every stakeholder in our EOC group, from Fort Nelson First Nations to ambulance, RCMP, fire, search and rescue, rangers, all of them.
Yeah, thank you. That was my question.
Any other questions? Could I get a motion then for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Penny, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All those in favor? Motion carries. Admin report number 24. Memorial request. Staff received a request for a memorial photo and plaque to be installed in the Northern Rockies Airport, as there is no existing policy direction on this type of memorial. A decision of regional council is being sought. Ms. Watson, would you like to speak to this?
Yes. Essentially, we received a request, but staff doesn't have any guidance for this type of request. We do have a memorial dedication policy specific to parks and trails and open spaces, and for the installation of benches and trees and tables. This is for the installation of a photo on a wall at the airport. We just don't have anything that gives us any guidance to approve that, so I'm seeking council's direction.
Any comments, councillors? I read this this report, and unfortunately, on the tragic loss of one of our employees. He did do some nice photography here, and I think a plaque at the airport would not be out of line. There were some procedures here that staff prepared that would outline the parameters of such a plaque, namely that it be donated, that it be a certain size, that the wording be acceptable to the municipality, etc., etc. I thought all those parameters were acceptable. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't allow this plaque to be put up in the airport. Councillor Andrews.
I'm a similar mind, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to see, with the parameters we set here, if maybe we just have a little policy written up, so in the future, staff can just follow the policy, and then it can just move forward from there.
I think we could develop a policy for that. Since there's so many different locations and so many things, including the rec center, for instance, in a case like this, we're doing a one-off on this. We may get more applications. I mean, if we were getting several applications a year, I think it would be a good idea to institute a policy. Since they're so infrequent, I don't see the harm in just simply doing this as a one-off. Any other comments, councillors, on that? Councillor Scholes.
I think it's in order to do this as well. I think it makes a lot of sense. For the morale is improved by recognizing the long-term contributions of people. It's good.
Very well. So I'll make the motion that we allow this plaque to be put at the airport, utilizing the criteria that was outlined by Mr. Coupé, I think, in preparing this, Mrs. Watson in preparing this.
Second that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
He's a good guy.
Northern Rockies Regional Municipality Revenue Anticipation Borrowing Bylaw number 179/2020 for adoption. We've already spoke to this. This is for second and third reading. I'm sorry?
Sorry, I'm going to just clarify. This is for adoption.
Sorry, for adoption. The annual budget adoption bylaw number 73 for first, second, third reading and adoption. Any comments? Very well. I'll ask for a motion. Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Roper. All those in favor? That carries. We have no correspondence. Received for information, Council Information Package February 26, 2020 and Council Information Package March 4th, 2020. New business items. 2020 budget comments and next steps. Mr. Barry, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, Mayor. So we received officially 5 responses or comments through the budget engagement process. All of them were received at both the open houses that occurred in those 2 Thursdays. No other official feedback's been given either through email or anything else outside of that. So that's for council information for your review. We had approximately 46 attendees at both the open house meetings, so up from last year and two previous years. And with that, we're in the process of putting the draft documents together now for council for review on the 28th, and based on the preliminary discussions with council and the open house engagement piece, just looking to see if the council wishes to give any further direction with the budget as they've seen so far.
Any questions? I just, wanted to say that, our attendance at this is up from previous years, and I don't think there's a real material change in the taxation. And I think the only reason we receive more people is I think people are finding our council is much more accessible to things. It was very easy talking to people there. They came in, they were engaging, and I think it was really good. And I appreciate councillors showing up for that open house. And I think it was really encouraging. It was, and it was, it gives us a chance to talk to the public about the thing that matters to them, service levels and revenue. And I think this was an excellent opportunity for council to get out there. And I would encourage people to come out and ask questions of us. It's what we're there for. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just one more thing.
Yes.
The binders that you have, if you can return those to corporate services so that we can reuse the same binders to build the draft or the budget information.
Council reports. Any council reports? Councillor Penny.
Just wanted a little report on my last visit to Vancouver for the Outdoor Adventure Show. I helped run the booth with 8 other participants from all over the northern loop that we're really trying to encourage. And I found again that the engagement was unbelievable, actually. The amount of people that were engaging with us to learn more about the north, and people that are actually planning trips to the north that hadn't really planned on spending any additional time in certain areas, or were just headed to go north. And it was really good to get a chance to educate them and let them know that everything they want to see is right here in our own province. And again, I was able to meet with several professional people, whether it be RNs or teachers and that sort of thing, that educating them on our area made it exciting for them to think about moving to the north. So,
for in staff and in council in telling the story of the Northern Rockies. And thank you very much for attending that. And I think you will be a great ambassador for recruiting people to the Northern Rockies. Thank you. I attended the First Nations Major Projects Coalition in Prince George. Chief Gale is the chair of the Major Projects Coalition. There were 3 members of parliament there, and Chief Gale, of course, well as 200 other guests, including, I believe, Chief Case. I'm not sure if it's Chief Case from the Cascadene. He was there. Membership a year ago was 40 First Nations, and now it's 65. And this is in large part due to the efforts of Chief Gale. In her opening remarks, she talked about collaboration, accountability, and benefits to all of us. And I think they were very good points to bring up. National Bank of Canada was there. It's a chartered bank that operates in Ontario and Quebec, and they're the primary lender to Fort Nelson Finance Authority, where First Nations can access funds to participate in projects, major projects that are occurring on their territory. I think this is a wonderful example of First Nations engaging in the marketplace, raising funds in the equity markets, and raising funds so that they can participate in the construction and the major projects that go on their territories. I talked to Bob Zimmer for about a half an hour about things that had to do with the Northern Rockies, and it was a wide-ranging discussion about attracting industry here, about our challenges with making sure that we have nursing staff here, and it was, as I say, it was wide-ranging, had to do with lots of things. Chief Gale's done a fantastic work at moving the Fort Nelson major projects forward. And I know that First Nations are challenged with capacity. You have small bands that simply don't have the capacity to deal with these major projects, and First Nations Major Projects provides advice and capacity to these small and large First Nations. I think it's a wonderful organization. Councillor Gerwing.
Are you done?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So just quickly wanted to go over what I've done. I attended the Chamber of Commerce Annual Community Awards evening, and it was really nice. Also, I attended the NCLGA Rural Health Task Force first meeting, and we had a roundtable discussion, and it revealed many of the same issues that we're facing here. So we had representation, obviously, from here, Prince George, Fort St. James, and Prince Rupert. And so, like, the issues are just common. It's the same thing throughout. So some of the things that we discussed were travel barriers, inability to recruit medical professionals for ourselves. So it's not just us that feels that we could do a really good job at that. Other people around this are trying, but being prevented by the health authority from recruiting for themselves. Regionalization of health services in one area is problematic for many, so we see it here, but they're also seeing it in the Northwest. and it affects many, many people and communities. And we had a discussion about what happened to the traveling specialist program that we used to benefit from. And we had some really good in-depth discussion around that the provincial government has just not prioritized rural health care. That's what was felt around the table. Some communities are seeing lab shutdowns and real limited mental health and addiction services throughout both the Northeast and the Northwest. I also completed the Know Before Internet Safety courses for elected officials, so it was quite easy to do and sort of engaging at the presentation. So, also, I was just wanted to talk for like a really brief moment with council about now that we've got the NCLGA taking action on healthcare advocacy. I wondered if it's time that we begin to approach FCM to advocate for the health file. Recently, FCM released their 2020 budget recommendations to the federal government. And it was interesting that they don't include anything on healthcare. They talk about support rural mobility solutions by ensuring permanent public transit funding includes a stream that can support rural needs. They talk about continue to expand funding for rail safety. They talk about empowering smaller communities to adapt to climate extremes by eliminating project size minimums from an expanded disaster mitigation and adaptation fund. And also they prioritized high-speed internet access, and they are urging Ottawa to build a rural lens in all its decision-making. I took this right off the website that FCM believes that these recommendations we get results together. So my thinking then went to, well, if we are stronger together and knowing that healthcare is fully realizing that healthcare is seen as a provincial territorial issue, would it not be beneficial for us to begin an advocacy campaign with FCM around the realities of healthcare in BC? And I would expand that to be right across Northern Canada. I say yes. And we are members. Like the municipality is a member, and I think that we should leverage that membership in every way possible. So I'm just wondering how you guys all feel about beginning an advocacy work within FCM.
Any comment, councillors?
I think it's a great idea. Why not? More people on board, the better.
So would we start then by writing a letter to FCM?
I would really like us to respond to, because I've been dealing with the representation for FCM, like some of the board people. We have one in Fort St. John. And yeah, so I think it would be really important for us to starting writing letters to find out. And I know they're going to say that it's a provincial file and FCM is the federal, but I think that we need to build our case in getting them to understand that rural Canada can't move forward if we don't have equitable access to health services.
And there is a federal aspect to healthcare.
Absolutely.
There is a Ministry of Health in the federal government.
Absolutely.
Councillor Roper.
Given that we have other communities that are in the same position as us, should we reach out to them as well for their support? And maybe instead of a letter coming from just us, it could come from a collaborative group for the betterment of all of our communities.
Yes, I would like to see the municipality start the letter, to write the letter, and then we can CC the other rural
and just ask for their
governments.
support on the letter. Yeah.
And they can write their own letters if they want to, right?
Or that, or be signatures to ours.
Yeah, or be signatures to ours for sure, yeah. And and within the NCLGA Rural Health Task Force, we are going to be looking at different advocacy projects as well. So to get all of the communities throughout the north, both the west and the east, working together to improve services for all of us.
Very well. Do we want to direct staff to write that letter, or would you like to go about doing this?
Yeah, I would make a motion then to direct staff to draft a letter to be presented for approval by council.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Roper. All those in favor?
And then I would also like to just perhaps explain that anybody that's going to any FCM event, we can be better prepared to present our case on what healthcare looks like in the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. So I know sometimes you have gone, Mayor, and these are.
Very well. Okay, we'll keep this in the back of our minds and see when the next FCM, I believe, is in Toronto. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's in July. Could be June.
Will you be going? Are you planning on attending?
I hadn't made a commitment yet, but if there's a compelling reason to take a message like that to FCM, I'm prepared to go if it's a benefit to the municipality. So if we see a benefit to go there, I would be glad to go. But I don't want to go there for no reason. I mean, the airfare is expensive, but I'm fully prepared to go if council wants that.
Could we look at what board positions might be opening up and when? Because maybe it's time that we had a seat on that board.
On FCM?
Mm-hmm.
Can do that. Speaking of board seats on FCM, you are on the board of NCLGA.
Yes.
Are there other board positions, directors at large on that? Or we have our representation there. I'm just wondering if we want more representation on NCLGA.
I'm appointed, and so anybody can be appointed if we want. If this council decides to appoint somebody else, you decide on those appointments.
But that would be in place of you.
Yes, but you're.
But
asking
I mean in addition
at the EGM. Well, I think the nominations are. I'm not sure when the nominations are due, but they are calling for nominations for director at large position. If anybody is interested, you file your nomination papers and then you have the vote at the AGM.
Very well. Something to look into. Very well. Are there anything else, councillors? Any questions from the media? Any questions regarding the regional municipality, the budget, priority set by council? Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn this regional council meeting.
I'll make the motion. Moved
by Councillor Dolan, seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? And we are adjourned.